you and your clients today. My name's Paul Carter. I am the Asian Business Development Director for the Beacon Group. Beacon as a company is a US regulated network. We have Beacon Global Advisor Networks licensed in the United States. We're headquartered in Atlanta. As a company, you can trace the origins of Beacon back over 30 years. The Beacon network, which is still running today, was a network predominantly set up to service utility workers, so paramedics, teachers, that type of demographic. Over the years, that network grew to be a multi-billion dollar network. And around about 5 or 6 years ago, our CEO is a gentleman called Randy Landsman. He had an amicable split with the Beacon network, wanted to travel the world, and very soon realized during his early days of travel that the American expat is a demographic that's grossly underrepresented in the international space, as I'm sure most of you who are sitting here listening would attest to. You will either have banks and financial institutions that just don't want to deal with you, or closing you down, and or the financial advice and planning opportunities that you may come into are limited. I certainly, having worked as a wealth manager and a broker in my early years offshore, remember some sage advice, or it's probably not the right word, but some advice that was given to me from my company that basically said, if you speak to someone who's got an American accent, find out if they're American. If they are, there's nothing we can do for them. And that's really down to the taxation and the laws and the complexities of your financial planning. Beacon, as a company, hopes to navigate that for you with a number of onshore and offshore products. Products I'm going to talk to you today about is called the UAP, which is Universal Access Retirement Annuity Contract. The UAP is a Guernsey 157A pension contract. It's an asset wrapper that enables US connected individuals to invest in assets sitting in foreign countries, in US based strategies and non-US based strategies without punitive taxations. It allows advisors with US connected clients to offer a tax friendly environment for pensionable assets in one place. And it's a structure for US individuals to place their non-US assets in and invest in US based strategies. So who are connected US individuals? Obviously, I'm sure most of you were sitting here will know that, but let's just recap. So anyone with a green card, any US citizen born in the United States or a US passport holder, or the children of a US citizen. This product and our plans incorporate solutions for anybody who's connected to the United States, whoever they may well be, and wherever you're residing globally. So obviously the main issues that you will come under as a US connected issue is the tax code for holding assets in non-US territories is massively complicated. I feel your tax code in itself is a minefield anyway, but even more so when you're in non-US territories. So the current tax code, which has been written for quite some time, was written to ensure that US people only invest in the United States. If you don't, you get hit with the punitive foreign investment tax, PIFIC tax, between 37 to 39.6%. And of course, you've then got massive complex reporting obligations for individuals and investment companies. The complex reporting side of things is really the main reason why you'll find that a lot of financial institutions, won't deal with US connected individuals. A lot of people and advisors who don't necessarily understand it will say it's all to do with FATCA, but FATCA is actually relatively simple for an institution. It's a few pieces of paper. It's more to do with the reporting issues and how funds and mutual funds and platforms, etc., are set up overseas. The example I give is if you invest into the, let's say, Canaccord managed fund, Canaccord may at the end of the year be able to report that fund has done 10%, with 3% of which were distributions. What they have to do for it to be US compliant is they have to be able to report every single trade and distribution that they received inside of that managed fund, which is massively complex. So rather than do that, institutions just say, sorry, we won't deal with Americans, which leaves American expats out in the cold, unfortunately. As I say, the UAP really here is to be able to come in and offer you a product and a solution that circumvents those issues that you found. So the UAP as a product based in Guernsey, the way that it's set up is it's treated as a non-qualifying annuity. It gets the benefit of tax deferral on your assets. So that means the IRS have no see-through of the assets inside of the wrapper. So whatever goes on inside of the wrapper, whatever you wish to invest in inside of the wrapper, inside of the product, is your choice. There's no PFIC taxation inside of the wrapper. There's no capital gains on trades and assets that happen inside of the wrapper. The gains are taxable on distribution. So the idea really is tax deferral. If you're having to pay 15, 20, 25, 30% on every gain that you make on a trade every year, of course over time that's going to eat in to your investment returns if you're having to pay tax on dividends and tax on gains. If you're able to defer that tax until a later date, you're getting a much higher compound return on your investments, and then you pay your dividends on distributions at the point that you wish to start taking your income, which in this case would need to start after the age of 55 or before the age of 70. There are
very much like an IRA and a 401k in the tax status. It's deferred till you take the distributions.
Correct. Yes, exactly that. 100%. The plan is based in Guernsey. Now, we're not working on a basis that you may come across some other products out there that work with DTAs or tax treaties. None of that happens in Guernsey. It's straightforward. No withholding tax on payments from Guernsey, so you get paid 100% in Guernsey, and then you pay your dividend, your capital gains on the distributions back in the United States. The residual of the plan is left to your heirs. There's no probate, so immediately on death we can pass your distributions to whoever you set out as your beneficiaries under the contract. Because it's a contract scheme, this comes under contract law. So it's recognizable in the United States as a pension. You don't have any issues with tax issues of trusts, which is what you may get across in the United States with some trust plans. Also with trust plans, it is at the discretion of the trustee as to who they pay out. So you may say that you want it to go into your wife and child. The trustees do have the ultimate discretion as to whether or not that gets paid out. Under a contract scheme, you don't have that. It's written under contract law. The contracts are signed. We have to follow the contract to its letter, as you have to in any part of contract law, or else we're breaking the law. So if you say that you want it to go to the candlestick maker and the butcher, then no one else can come in and challenge that. And that's one of the main points that I always try and get across, of the difference between a contract versus a trust pension. Trusts themselves aren't recognised in a number of countries, due to the fact that it's a civil law country. So France, Spain, Portugal, etc. Trust pensions are not necessarily recognised under their taxation regime. Contract pensions, this is a third pillar pension in the EU. It's recognised in all the civil law countries, which makes it a lot much more robust a tax planning tool that you have.
So if you were a US expat in Spain, France, Portugal, it'd be a lot more beneficial going under contract law than trust law.
100%. 100%. I mean, there are other things as well. When you start looking, trusts also. There's a big push at these days for tax avoidance. As I'm sure we're all aware, there's blacklists out there for various countries around the world who are producing products that may well be avoiding taxes. You find that there may be certain countries may come up with various trusts aren't viewed as pensions. They're looked upon in a much more you know, what's the word I'm looking for? A derogatory light. Whereas a
Yeah.
contract pension, contract schemes are viewed. People understand what pensions are. Governments around the world, legality of a contract scheme is much more straightforward. Whereas the legality of a trust scheme is being challenged around the world in a number of different jurisdictions, due to tax, the association with tax avoidance. So contract schemes are much more robust for the retiree in the international space. You're not going to find that these things you come a cropper with them later on, with they're being tarred with the same brush as a trust scheme in other parts of the world or in that same jurisdiction. So that's one of the things really to get down. Contract law is recognised around the world. Pretty much in every single country this is recognised as a pension, whereas you may find some trust schemes aren't viewed as pensions. They're viewed as trusts, and thus you may find that the taxation becomes a lot more punitive when you start to take your scheme. So the reason this scheme is taxed, is viewed as a non-qualifying annuity by the IRS, is the fact that it's a product that gives you an income for life. So you can't dip into this as and when you choose. You can't say, oh right, I've got $1 million in my plan, I need to go and take 200,000 out. You're not able to do that. We have to provide you with an income for life at the commencement of taking your benefits, which have to start post 55 and before 70. You're able to take 30% of the value of the plan at that time as a lump sum. Now that is taxable in the United States. The simplest way to explain how the tax system works is there's an element of return on investment. So if you invested $1 million and it grew to $2 million, if you're then say taking a distribution of $100,000 a year, I'll keep these numbers very, very simple. They're not actually no bearing on the actual calculation, but let's just keep it simple for easy maths. Million invested, it's grown to 2 million, you're taking 100,000 as your drawdown. 50% of that sum, of that 100,000, is considered to be a return on investment, a return on your initial million investment, and 50% is considered a gain, which is then taxable at your prevailing rate in the United States. The same will be said for the 30% pension commencement lump sum that can be taken at the start of the plan in that first year. There'll be an element of that as a return on investment, an element of that will be taxable in the United States.
Would all this be taxed as long-term gains because of the amount of time you've been in the plan? Even if you take it at 55 and then withdraw it at a year later, would it be taxed on a long-term basis?
I believe so. Although, look, I have to caveat this: I'm no tax expert in the United States.
Sure.
So, each individual needs to look at it from their own personal taxation perspective. But my understanding is as you say. But I do stand to be corrected from anyone out there that's a bit more knowledgeable about the personal taxation than I am. I mean, if you've invested at 55 or just before 55, and then you start taking gains out, it's likely that there's not going to be a massive gain in that short period of time anyway. So you're just going to be getting back your return on investment anyway. So it probably becomes a little bit moot. But for the most part, people are going to be in this for a significant period of time. So then you'll be looking at longer term gains rather than sort of short term gains.
Sure.
There is the ability to take a loan prior to drawing down at any time that the fund is live. So you can take up to 30%. It's a true loan, so there is a peppercorn rate of income that needs to be repaid prior to you actually starting your drawdown. But when you repay the loan, it actually increases the base that you started on. So if you had $1 million and you took 300,000 and you repaid that back, when it comes to doing the calculation, the base level that you went in at, a million, has risen to 1.3 million. So there are sometimes a tax benefit to taking a loan. Certainly, if you've got some unused tax credits, there are ways at which we can structure a loan to take advantage of your tax credits, thus increasing the base amount, which obviously reduces your capital gains later on. But that's something again that we would ask you to go and take tax advice over. But we're happy to share that on an individual basis with anyone that's interested. So just a quick product features of the UAP. So as I've been just talking about there, you have a pension commencement lump sum of 30% that's taken in the first year of the plan starting. Crucially, this has to provide an income for life. So we will calculate what's called the GAD rate. It's the UK Government Actuarial Department rates. These are rates that are set by some very, very clever people as to the rate or the percentage that you can take of any lump sum for it to be able to provide you with an income for life. So I think normally they're around about sort of 3 to 5% at the moment, depending on age. And then we can take 150% of that. We are totally transparent with the fees and the costs throughout. We have one fee on the plan. We don't charge for time. We don't get any suddenly some hidden extras that may crop up. We don't charge for calculating income distribution and all these sorts of things. Again, for anyone who's interested, we're happy to share the fee schedule with you later after the webinar. You have a huge amount of investment flexibility and diversification. You can invest in pretty much anything that you want to, be it that it's mutual funds, single stocks, bonds, structured products, whatever it is that you want to go into, you can invest into. There's nothing to hold you back. Just a quick example on what I mean by the GAD rates and how these work. So if the GAD rate for a member was $53 per thousand, and their fund that they had was $100,000, their basic annual pension would be $5,300 per annum. It's then uprated by 150% to give a maximum cap drawdown of $7,950 per annum. We calculate that every 3 years up to age 75. Then once you hit 75, we calculate that annually. And the rates do change with age, because obviously the rates tend to get slightly bigger with age, because there's less time that you're statistically likely to stay alive. Let's not make it so morbid. So look, just a quick case study, really. I mean, a lot of this is fairly straightforward stuff, but let's just have a look at that. So, we have a US green card holder living in Hong Kong, owns an investment portfolio. The issues that person may or may not have, but most likely will have, is that portfolio is going to be subject to PIFIC taxation. They're going to struggle to get access to US investments as they reside outside of the US, and this is something that we found very, very difficult. Through our domestic services, obviously, people want to invest back in the United States, but once you're outside of the United States, a lot of those doors start to close. So you are very much stuck with either paying PFIC or not investing in anything at all, or having a very small amount of US compliant investments that you can actually access through some of the platforms and whatnot that are out here. It becomes very, 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 very complicated. So the solution really for these issues is the UAP. It removes the PIFIC taxation issue 100%. It gives access to the US domestic investment market if you require. It's very, very simple in tax reporting. Obviously, so let's just go back. It also gives you access to the non-US investment market if you require. So it's not just saying, oh yeah, you can have a UAP, oh, and by the way, now you can go back and invest in all those things that you were doing. It allows you to invest in all those things that you weren't doing because you didn't want to pay the PIFIC taxation. So very, very crucial point there. We have a client. I was speaking to a client of ours quite recently who we were talking about the UAP and how she found it, and her experience of it, and her response was, Paul, this takes me back 20 plus years to a time when we had investment flexibility. It puts me back to where we used to be. It gives you, I'm not at any time saying that offshore investments are better than the US domestic onshore investments. All I'm saying is it gives you the choice as an investor to go and invest into the markets and the sectors, and then it allows you to invest in the ways that you wish to invest in, rather than saying you have to go back. As a Brit, I don't want to invest back into the United Kingdom, not because I don't like the United Kingdom, just that I don't want to pay tax on all my dividends and my incomes. I'd like to take the same options and have my income grow without the need to pay capital gains tax domestically back in the United Kingdom. And that's what the UAP allows you to do. It allows you to invest as an offshore investor. It allows you to have gross roll up of tax on your investments, which at the end of the day will give you a much larger investment pot to retire on, and hopefully to pass on to your heirs when we are no longer of this earth. And there are a few things I'm sure that Henry will be able to send you. We have a lovely illustration of how tax deferral really benefits your own your investment returns, and just a little something on the rule of 72, which I'm sure Henry will be happy to distribute to you later. Also, remember the UAP really simplifies your tax reporting. There are 2 forms that you need to fill in. Again, I have a guide to that we can share with you later. Very, very straightforward forms that your CPA will know what to do. You're not having to report on the assets that are inside. You're making the tax authorities aware that you have the overseas pension, so that it's known about, it's on record, and then you're reporting obviously what the values are, just so they know what it is, but you're not having to pay any tax on there. It's a very, very simple reporting. Really removes a lot of that hard work that you were doing with a lot of your investments beforehand. And of course, I'll stress it again, it gives you the free choice on where to invest your money, and that's crucial. Just a little bit about us and consumer protection. So UAP is regulated by the Guernsey Financial Services Commission, and the plan is covered by the Channel Islands Financial Ombudsman. So there's a good, robust regulator behind you, and an ombudsman scheme where there is a form of recourse if you feel the advice, the recommendation on the plan isn't living up to the advice that you were getting. There is a regulator and an ombudsman there behind you. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of comfort regarding the protection that the consumer has. And that's me. Thank you all very much for listening. Is there any questions or anything that I could perhaps answer?
No, that was perfect. Thanks, Paul. That was great. So as I think we were speaking earlier, it's a great analogy of what a US investor can do now. Obviously, before they were very trapped in the draconian kind of taxation laws that the US has for expats, with the PFIX, the tax reporting, how complex it is. And I think it's such an innovative solution to what is such a complex issue in present day, because for one, you don't need to it's so easy to report the tax on this compared to what it would be if you were to invest in a mutual fund, especially an active mutual fund outside the US. And also it's deferred, so you don't have to pay the tax each year or report the tax each year. You can just take it out as what you could an IRA or 401k or a Roth IRA with after-tax dollars. I think it's completely revolutionary in the US market. I think many US expats should look at this, especially if they plan on being offshore for a long time, even if you're a young investor looking to set up a 401k or an older one that has accumulated wealth and just wants to have something put in retirement. It's such a great product, I think.
Thank you. And it also, as well, it's one to also consider if you are another expat and you're moving to the United States. You're I mean, let's just take the common one, a Brit who's going to take up a position in the US tend to be one of those countries where you stay for forever and a day. You get there and a bit like me in Hong Kong. I rocked up for a few months, and 13 years later, I'm still in Asia, still struggling to find my way home. The United States, I believe, is one of those sort of places. You go for a couple of years, you like it, you love it. You stay for a little bit longer. Your kids get settled. You think, well, I'll stay here a little longer. And before you know it, you're there 10, 15 years, and you're retiring. Someone that type of expat is already going to be holding investments who, once you get into the US tax situation, the US the tax system, you're going to have PIFIC taxation, PIFIC investments everywhere, and it's going to be a mess. And you may be looking at that and saying, well, yeah, we want to go and live there. We're going to be there for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but ultimately we still want to retire back in the Cotswolds, with a nice thatched roof house and,
Yes.
and all those lovely things that you can only quintessentially get in the United Kingdom. So the option you would have if you're into that situation, if you are that type of expat, is you're either going to have to pay that punitive taxation. Now, we sort of say these tax codes with as a throwaway comment, but when you actually really think about it, if you're paying the best part of 40% in capital gains on deemed gains and income every year, that's soon going to eat into your investment returns. We sort of, it's a very throwaway comment, but that's a huge amount that you have to pay. So either you pay that, which is a massive amount, or you bring everything back into the United States, which has its downsides as well. Or as an expat, before going into the United States, you can open up one of these UAPs. You can make contributions into your UAP. You can go to the United States. You can live there. Your plan is growing tax free. You leave the United States. The pension still works for you. It still works for you. It's still a pension. We have other options within inside the schemes. If there was a case you wanted to moving into another jurisdiction with other taxation issues, it still works as a pension. Obviously, once you're outside of the United States, if you're no longer under the US tax, you're no longer a green card holder. You've given up your US connection. You won't have to pay US tax on it. It's not a US based product, so you don't suddenly go, oh, I've still got to pay US income tax. If you're no longer under the US tax system, then there's no US tax to pay. Of course, it's paid tax free in Guernsey. Your only taxation issue that you may come across is any taxation on pensions in the jurisdiction that you're in. Obviously, that then comes down to where you're going to retire. But if you were retiring into the United Kingdom, you'd be looking at paying capital gains on your assets from the day that you got into the UK. There's all these other areas, but crucially, what we seem to, as I say, what we sort of throw away when we make these throwaway comments about PFIC taxation, it's a very, very, very punitive tax that you have to pay. It has the ability to decimate investment returns over time. And so, as a person moving into the United States, considering moving into the United States, setting yourself up a UAP will be something that you'll probably thank yourself for at a later date. And you can do all of that whilst you're offshore, get yourself ready. And likewise, for an American expats, if you're looking at retirement savings and putting money away for retirement, I would argue that the UAP is probably the best option that you have out there in the offshore world. And obviously, I'd say that because I struggle to find something.
Got to be unbiased, but I still think there's not many options out there, and this is definitely one of the best feasible solution I've come across.
Indeed, yeah.
Also, for a UK expat in the US, it can also be done for inheritance purposes as well.
Correct.
Looking at as well, it's got that advantage. It's great, and also it's got so much uses that you have.
It's a wonderful product. It's a wonderful product. Also, just while I'm here, Beacon as a company, we have licensed advisors. We have a network of advisors. So if you are looking to have someone provide advice on existing domestic US assets, please, refer back to Henry and his team. We are able to look at 401k rollovers. We'll look at managing your existing IRAs, look at managing and providing advice on inheritance tax, existing US domestic assets. Again, we tend to find that, in the United States, a lot of the competitors out there, they don't particularly want to deal with expatriates. They can't deal with expatriates. They don't understand it, and thus, you could be sitting there with assets in the United States, and you're getting very limited or poor advice on the assets that you've got, given your global situation. Beacon as a firm and the advisors that work on our network come in with a global mindset. So, if you're an American expatriate and you're sitting there with 401ks, IRAs, investment accounts that you're not getting the advice from, please refer back to Henry, and we can certainly look at coming and assisting you in all areas, not just your pension planning, pretty much every area that the American expat struggled with.
It's a big need, because you come across a lot of advisors in the US, and I'm sure they're great, but they just focus on US specific. They don't have too much knowledge on the expats, because as soon as they're an expat, they'll just leave them or notify the account or say we can't deal with you. So they have very little knowledge of US as an expat. So I think it's a market that's out there that has been left behind. And definitely, if you are a US with a 401k, there are options to you nowadays, such as rolling into an IRA. Obviously, an IRA can have massive tax benefits from you when you come to 59.5 to withdraw, and you've got more investment freedom over what you invest in 401k. Also, if you've got an IRA as well, which may not be particularly working for you, or you may be limited into the options you have with back in the US. So feel free to reach out.
We tend to find.
Thanks for. Sorry.
No, please. Yeah, we tend to find the 401k transfers that we do are pretty significant in value, but the people are holding significant sums of money with little or no management, and certainly if that rings a bell, then please reach out. We'll be happy to assist. But thank you, Henry, for the opportunity today. It's been
no. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and hope you get to travel back to Asia safely, and really appreciate the presentation.
No worries.
Thank you.
We look forward to speaking to you again.
Let's stop recording.
All right. How do I do that?